this awakening is happening because of America. America this time is wakening up Europe, and it's fantastic. And you're giving all of us great hope. We're learning so much from you.
Hey friends, Sean from SGT Report. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for returning. Thanks for finding us on YouTube, because they're making it almost impossible to do so. So a shout out to my patrons, and a very special thank you also to one of this channel's sponsors, Virtual Shield. You know, if you're not using a VPN by now on your desktop, tablet, or mobile device when you browse the internet, you're really exposing yourself to danger, guys. At some point, you have to get a VPN. But what is a VPN? It's a virtual private network that allows you to create a secure connection to another network over the internet. Check it out. I'll show you how this works. You can see me here on my website, thelibertymill.com. I've already installed Virtual Shield. I just go up to this little icon, the shield up there in the upper right-hand corner. I click it, and then I connect to Virtual Shield. And now you can see that my IP address says that it's coming from Chicago, Illinois. Virtual Shield has changed my IP address to one coming out of Illinois. I don't live anywhere near Illinois. So that's how a VPN works. Very simple to do. Go to virtualshield.com and download the free 30-day trial and install it. Then just click connect like I just showed you. This month, Virtual Shield is offering a 4th of July celebration special of 20% off all VPN plans and all premium add-ons and VIP performance plans for as low as $3 a month. So sign up for your free 30-day trial. Protect your personal data now with a VPN. Try Virtual Shield. I'll leave the link below this video. Hey friends, Sean from SGT Report here. Thank you so very, very much for tuning in. I am delighted to bring you Irish journalist Gemma O'Doherty. On Twitter, she's at Gemma OD1, anticorruptionireland.com. She joins us now. As a man with Irish blood coursing through my veins, it is my honor to have her. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much, Sean, for having me on. I really appreciate it. And well done on the pronunciation of my name. Not easy.
It is my delight. You know, I do, my one impression is Scottish, and it's Sean Connery from The Hunt for Red October saying, "Ryan, some things in here don't react so well to bullets." That's all I got.
Not bad, not bad. Room for improvement.
Most things in here don't react too well to bullets.
We'll have to get you going on the Irish accent.
I know. Well, as an Irishman, I'm really proud of what you're doing. You're fighting for the people of Ireland. And I went to your Twitter account today, and I find it quite amusing that your pinned tweet at the top, thanking the 10,622 people who voted for you in the recent Dublin election there, the EU elections 19, they have got your video basically muted, saying, "This media may contain sensitive material. Your media settings are configured to warn you when media may be sensitive." What a joke. Let's click on this, folks. Let me do a screen share here, and let's view this sensitive content. Twitter doesn't want you to watch this startling sensitive material. Listen to this.
If you speak out in any way, shape, or form against migration in this country, you are immediately called a racist, a fascist, a neo-Nazi. It's disgusting. We have one tiny little island, okay, to call home. That's all we have. We never went and colonized anywhere. We just have that.
I'll pause it right there. Gemma, you are fighting for your country as I am fighting for mine. And the globalists call us Nazis. They want to demonize us for having the audacity to fight for our country. It's really an amazing world in which we live. Why did you throw your hat in the ring in this fight against New World Order globalism?
Well, I suppose I'm coming quite late to the party in a way, because I was a journalist with the mainstream media for almost 20 years, Sean. I worked for the biggest daily paper called the Irish Independent, which was bought up by Bill Clinton's biggest Irish donor, a man called Dennis O'Brien, who I think it's safe to say is probably one of the most disrespected people in Ireland, to put it mildly. But when he took over, I was chief features writer. I was doing an awful lot of work on police corruption in particular, unsolved murders that had been covered up by the state, a lot of paedophilia, etc., that had been covered up. And I was told when he became the biggest shareholder in 2012 that I had to give up writing about corruption. So I didn't go into journalism to write about gardening. So I sued them and I was successful. I took 3 legal actions, and I think I'm probably the only person to sue him successfully. So I'm quite proud of that. So that happened around 2015. By the time everything was over, then I made a documentary, the poster for which is behind me. Google have asked me to remove the child's face, but this is the story of Ireland's longest and youngest missing child, little girl called Mary Boyle, who was 6 when she was sexually assaulted and murdered in a very remote part of the country up in Donegal. And her murder was covered up by a number of politicians and also the police in Ireland. So I became, because I was no longer, I suppose, tethered in my work, I was able to basically write what I wanted. Obviously, we have very strict defamation laws here in Ireland, but you know, I've had my documentary has had nearly 1 million views on YouTube. And last year, I decided that the situation was so serious in this country, I could keep putting out all of the evidence of corruption, but really what has happened is that people in Ireland have scandal fatigue. They don't expect anything less or anything more now. They just expect scandal after scandal after scandal. So I said, I'm going to have to throw my hat into the political ring, which was very difficult for me because I've always been a journalist. But I said, I'm not going to be able to affect change unless I run for election. And that really was when my awakening came in terms of joining the dots in relation to the One World Government, George Soros, his influence in Ireland. And that's when I really became under attack. And I have been, you know, obviously heavily censored in the course of the last year. It's really a year since I started speaking out against globalism, and you know, my awakening has happened very quickly, even though for years I've been writing about all of the things that, you know, we question about this new world order, you know, vaccinations and fluoridation and climate change. I've been on the right side of that, but I hadn't really joined the dots until about a year ago.
Oh, that's so interesting. You know, I've heard from my friend Rowan Croft, who I think you know as well, who was attacked not long ago with one of these milkshake attacks. I've heard that Soros is kind of embraced by the people of Ireland. I don't know that he's even as demonized there as he is here. What's your take on that?
I think increasingly he is. Unfortunately, we have an awful lot of people in Ireland still asleep. There's a number of reasons for that, not least because of our culture, which has become, it's always been quite soaked in alcohol, but it's been particularly bad over the last few years, due in no small part to the fact that many people are debt slaves since our crash, you know, more than a decade ago. We now have 200 billion euros of debt hanging over our shoulders, and many people just cannot see a way out of it, and they are despairing about their lives, so they turn to alcohol and drugs. So, but those who are awake, and it's growing all the time, they understand, you know, George Soros is the person who helped to bring abortion to Ireland. We were always a pro-life country. It was written into our constitution that the unborn should have equal protection to the mother, providing the mother's life is not in danger, obviously. Unfortunately, we voted for abortion last year. I didn't. But people are so anesthetized, they are so indoctrinated by our highly corrupt media. The entire mainstream media in this country is completely globalist and pro-open borders, pro-vaccinations, pro-climate change, man-made, etc. So it's very difficult.
You know, I'm beginning to believe that, like so many of my recent interviews, this one too will be demonetized immediately by YouTube, if not deemed to be sensitive content and given a strike, God knows what. But there seem to be some parallels in your awakening to mine. Your documentary, I want to get the word out on this. Mary Boyle, The Untold Story. Is that available on YouTube, Vimeo? Where can people find that? Because we'll get to the connections here in a second, but this whole pedophilia thing was a big part of my awakening as well. So how do people watch that doc?
That was really what woke me up as well, the pedophilia. But my Mary Boyle documentary is on YouTube. I've been censored 3 times by YouTube. I've had my channel shut down twice, and just yesterday again it was, my streaming facilities have been stopped. So I have 2 channels. So I have one channel which has 26,000, which for Ireland is quite good, and then I have a secondary channel which I'm now having to operate on. I did a video the other day which was about the fact that Catholic sites in Ireland now are being vandalized, as they are in France. I think something like 3 a day are being attacked in France. And so this has been not reported at all by the mainstream media. Anyway, I made a video on that, and also the fact that, can you still hear me?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, because that's gone on my screen. But also the fact that we are not reporting migrant crime. Look, this is the narrative everywhere, but the mainstream are not informing the people about migrants who are involved in crime in the way that they are informing them about Irish people. And we've an awful lot of, sadly, migrants who are turning to crime, and they're getting an extra special protection. So my video, that video was deemed to be hate speech by YouTube, and I've appealed it, obviously. So I'm now back onto my smaller channel. But anyway, my Mary Boyle documentary is on this smaller channel, and as I say, it's had nearly 1 million views, and amazingly they haven't taken that down. So yeah, it caused a lot of ructions here, and people were really, there were protests on the street after it, and there was outcry. My documentary very clearly shows how this child's murder was covered up by a politician. It probably goes much deeper than I have been able to say, but I suspect there may be links with the British royals. Many of your listeners will have heard of Lord Louis Mountbatten, who had a large castle very near to where this child was disappeared. So this is a story which goes to the heart of everything that is wrong with this country, and everything that is wrong with this country begins, and in some cases ends, with paedophilia, because we have been a haven for child abusers. And as I said, Sean, this has been part of my awakening due to another story that I got my teeth into about 1.5 years ago, which I can tell you about.
Oh, well, feel free, because the thing is that I'm seeing connections, we all are now, with pedophilia, the elite, and intelligence agencies. We can talk about the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein, who now we're hearing was basically granted pretty much immunity, a hands-off policy by the U.S. government and the DOJ because of his connections to intelligence. That's now just coming out. But, when we talk about Mary Boyle, it reminds me of Madeleine McCann and John Benet Ramsey. These stories continue to come up again and again and again, and the real perpetrators of the crime are never arrested. They're never brought to justice, just like, well, for instance, Sir Edward Heath, who after his death was pointed to as being the source of the murders of as many as 16 children. And of course, Jimmy Savile, who was close friends with Prince Charles, so much so that the prince wanted to make Jimmy Savile the godfather to his sons. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. And that's why I think the issue of child trafficking and pedophilia is waking up people all over the globe. That's the good news. The bad news is it's still a huge, huge problem globally.
It is, due to their attempt to make it acceptable. And it's quite terrifying, how they're trying to do this. On Epstein, I've been covering that quite a lot because there's a few interesting Irish connections, not least the fact that the Clintons are alleged to have bought a new property here in Ireland. And Hillary Clinton appeared here a couple of weeks ago, magically, out of the blue, and I got a tip off that she was here.
I saw your video on that. You were right outside where she was purported to be.
Yeah, and that video, for me, it's got over 100,000 views, which was a lot. And I wonder, is that the reason why YouTube have censored me again? But yeah, this property is in the middle of nowhere, but still quite close to Dublin. We know that Bill Clinton has stayed there. It is purported to be owned by the hotelier John Fitzpatrick, who has quite a well-known hotel in New York. I think it's somewhere around Times Square, Fitzpatrick's Hotel. A lot of Irish people stay there. He's very close to Clinton, and the rumor is that maybe the Clintons have bought this property, but it certainly is my belief that she was staying there in the last couple of weeks. And I was down there, and we got a drone to have a look at the scenery around. But there's also an underground tunnel. But we're keeping a close eye because we do not want that woman or Bill Clinton in this country. And, a lot of people now are wakening up to the hold that the Clintons have over this country, and Obama. There's a petrol station in Ireland called the Barack Obama Plaza. I mean, we've had this fawning relationship with the Democrats. Trump is utterly despised by the mainstream establishment here. And it's just utterly disgraceful the way they carry on, So I suspect the Clintons have a plan to, if things get too hot over there, we'll always get the red carpet in Ireland. And I'm trying to tell people that they have very serious questions to answer.
It strikes me that people have got to be waking up, even in Ireland, to this Clinton connection to Soros, the Rothschilds. Linda Foster Rothschild was probably one of the most chummy people with Hillary prior to her running for president, and while she wanted to run for president. Linda Foster Rothschild was also very chummy with John McCain, an avowed globalist, just like Soros. And I've got this video clip from years back of Hillary Clinton gushing over George Soros and introducing him basically as the savior. We're so lucky to have George. And she introduces Soros at one of these speaking events. So these people are avowed globalists, and they do not want sovereignty. They don't give a damn about life. They are aligned against nationalism, and anybody who stands for sovereignty, life, and nationalism in any way is called a Nazi. It shocks me that more and more people in Ireland aren't waking up to that fact, because Trump here is also bashed by the mainstream media every single day, even though at least half of this country voted for him and will vote for him again in 2020. But they act like half of the country doesn't exist, doesn't matter. And frankly, if you make any videos about this president or any of the good things he's done, they're immediately demonetized, and you're labeled as not suitable for most advertisers, which begs the question, are most advertisers anti-sovereignty? Are most advertisers pro-pedophilia? I mean, it's a fair question to ask, right?
Completely. And what is frustrating in a country like Ireland, we're fairly unique in Western Europe in that we were colonized, we fought for sovereignty for so long and failed miserably for so long, but we finally got it 100 years ago. And, being Irish is, look, we've so many millions of Irish in America who claim Irish heritage. It is a very special, unique thing. Our culture, we should be very proud of our culture in the way that other cultures should be proud. But, we have a very special history. And suddenly now it's okay to give it away and to give away our sovereignty. And we, the Irish people, will soon be a minority on this tiny little island. Our culture has been decimated. We as a people are being replaced. It's described as the Great Replacement. We called the Great Famine of the 1840s. We called it the Great Famine. It was a genocide. It was a Holocaust against our people. And here we are again. The same thing is happening, and no disrespect at all to the many Africans and Asians and Muslims that are coming to settle here in Ireland. But personally, I would like to see our culture protected. And people, the way that people are being so bullied into feeling, no, we must now become we are multicultural. I mean, the cities here no longer are Irish. I speak to a lot of people who come here as tourists, and they say, forget it. We don't want to go to Starbucks. We don't want to see McDonald's everywhere. We come here for a unique Irish experience. We're never coming back. So we're destroying our, tourism product. We're destroying our landscape with the most hideous, industrial wind turbines everywhere. We're losing. You go into a restaurant or hotel, and the chances are you will not be served by an Irish person. And all of these things are important to me. I don't want us to become a minority. I just don't. I think that is wrong.
Well,
makes me a neo-Nazi.
Yeah, the problem is that's hate speech. Under the new rules by YouTube, you can't possibly criticize immigration policies. That makes you a person using hate speech. And look, let's be honest. What's going on in Dublin city center is now as bad as what we've seen in Paris in many ways, but you're not allowed to talk about that. And it's not as though immigration necessarily in and of itself is a bad thing. It's unlimited immigration with people that don't want to melt into the melting pot. Most of these people don't care about the Irish culture, but that's the problem. See, as you know, this is all being done by design. It's being done in the EU by design. It's being done in Germany. It's being done in France. Frankly, Hillary Clinton wanted it done here too, all by design to destroy sovereignty and to destroy culture. And it really is a war on humanity. It reminds me of a little thing called the protocols ... It seems to me they're doing exactly what they said they would do when the protocols were written. Destroy culture, destroy religion, destroy morality, introduce all measure of terrible things, including the legalization of pedophilia and bestiality, as Tom DeLay warned us. There's 12 perversions under the Obama DOJ that they were trying to fast track and legalize. And among those were pedophilia and bestiality.
Well, we've already found a secret memo coming out of the Justice Department. They're now going to go after 12 new perversions, things like bestiality, polygamy, having sex with little boys and making that legal.
You can't make this up, Gemma.
That is just, yeah, I mean, nothing surprises me anymore about what is coming out of, what we know now about what was going on within the Obama administration. And, here in Ireland, we've had all of this insanity. It's every day there's a new story. You think, how much crazier can it get? Last week, a Catholic school in Ireland said that boys can now come to school in dresses. And that apparently it was the children's idea. The parents weren't even told. This is in a Catholic school called St. Bridget's. Now, it has not gone down well at all. The Archbishop of Dublin, the Catholic Archbishop of Dublin, is the patron of this school, and he had nothing to say about it, as he did. He had very little to say when the protection of the unborn was removed from our constitution. They stay quiet. They're globalists. The hierarchy in this country are globalists. But thankfully, that school appears to have changed its mind, because it didn't go down so well that little boys, and I'm talking about, just out of kindergarten, should go to school in dresses. I mean, this to me is pedophilia, and I'm not afraid to say that. But you see, what has happened, Sean, I think, is the fact that in the past, look, again, my knowledge of this is still fairly fresh, but, the Catholic monasteries here and across the Catholic Europe were infiltrated by communists, by Freemasons, who perverted them and corrupted them, and obviously went away from the true ideals of Catholicism. And as I was saying earlier, a story that I did in the last year and a half related to a very well-known private boys' school here in Ireland, which produced, the brightest and the best, the pillars of society, bankers, barristers, you name it. And it was run by the Carmelite order. And it's very, very well known and considered very sort of middle class, upper middle class. But we didn't know until recently that there was a serious issue with child sexual abuse there, being carried out at the hands of many priests, but also lay teachers, so some lay teachers. And, for me, this was a major awakening, because I looked at some of the elite that run this country and run it into the ground, the people who are evicting people from their homes now, the bankers who destroyed this country. We lost our financial sovereignty in 2008. And many of them were sexually abused as children. And they were turned into psychopaths. They were turned into people completely lacking empathy. And this has allowed me to understand the history of Ireland and why so many people are damaged, why they behave in such a way that is so lacking in compassion, how they can carry out all this brutality against people in terms of taking their basic rights away, the right to justice, the right to, not being enslaved by debt, etc. So now they can't get away with the sexual abuse as much. So the physical abuse and all of that entails. So now they're trying to make it legitimate and say, boys can wear dresses and boys can become girls, and that's all okay. And this is the new pedophilia, the new abuse.
Yeah, that's right. And anything goes. There is no morality. You do what you want. Do as thou wilt, right? That is the whole of the law. That's really the planks of Satanism. I think that's what's being pushed now. I mean, is that taking it too far? It seems to me that if you're going to allow little boys and girls to self-identify as whatever sex they want or no sex at all on any given day and encourage that behavior, that is not just a decline in morality. That's a slippery slope into the absolute hellish abyss.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And, you know, unfortunately, the church don't like to talk about hell or sin anymore. They're two words that were mentioned a lot when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s. We were very aware of sin. We were of, you know, what it meant to sin, mortal sin. We were, you know, educated in that way, and it served us very well. But now the church is way too frightened to talk. It's all, you know, touchy-feely, wonderful, everything's great. Tolerance and apathy is the way to go. And I think it was Socrates that said that tolerance and apathy are the final virtues of a dying society. And unfortunately, Irish society is on its last legs. But I am optimistic that we have to head into the pits of hell before we can, you know, have our full awakening and recover. So we're sort of in that hell now, and it feels like a hell. It really does. But I feel that, you know, thanks to the great work that you're doing and so many conservatives in the States, this awakening is happening because of America. America this time is wakening up Europe, and it's fantastic. And you're giving all of us great hope. We're learning so much from you.
Oh, well, I think that's so exciting. And I'm not a Donald Trump proselytizer. I've made several videos where there's been some issues where he's gotten it wrong. I was very concerned about the Second Amendment. He was a little too chummy with Nancy Pelosi at one point. But look, I do thank my lucky stars. I think we should all thank our lucky stars that this president is in the White House as opposed to the witch being in the White House, because literally if Hillary Clinton had gotten into the White House, it would have been like putting Linda Rothschild or George Soros in the Oval Office. She was a puppet for those people. And I don't think this president is. Some will say that, oh, he's an avowed Zionist and anybody who doesn't know it and that he's just playing his part is brain dead. But guess what? If that were true, then why are we seeing record levels of pedophile arrests? Why are we seeing Jeffrey Epstein taken into custody? That's a huge, huge story, and his connection to intelligence. That's all coming out now. That can't be stopped. That would have never, ever happened if Hillary Clinton was in the White House. And dare I say, I'm not sure if we would have seen Brexit and so many people marching in the streets in the UK and throughout Europe had President Trump not become president.
Yeah, I mean, and look, as a journalist, it kills me to support any politician because it's my job to hold them to account. But I have to say, increasingly, like for me, when he was elected in 2016, I was delighted because it meant that the most, in my opinion, dangerous man in Ireland, Denis O'Brien, would not have access to the White House because he's the Clinton Foundation's biggest Irish donor, and he controls most of the press here in Ireland. So I said, it's a good day for Ireland that, you know, Denis O'Brien does not have access to the White House. And to be fair to Trump, he actually issued a statement about Denis O'Brien in the weeks before the election. I think it was in the days before the election. So that was my starting point. I'm very, very wary of all politicians, but he has impressed me so much, especially because of the way he has exposed the mainstream media, which I've worked within for nearly 20 years. And most of the time it was fine. You know, we had a fairly okay media here, but I'm so grateful to him for calling out the highly corrupt media that we have now. Today I see he's calling out Twitter, Facebook. He's hopefully going to take on these big tech giants who make our lives such a misery by censoring us at every opportunity, censoring the most normal conversations that we need to have as nations. They are the epitome, in my opinion, of evil for what they are doing. So I would love to see the likes of Twitter, Facebook, all brought under control. Hopefully he's going to do that. But what he's doing in relation to pedophilia as well, I mean, I think it's 1,700 pedophiles have been have been arrested, and then obviously, as you said, Epstein, and he is doing great work. North Korea, who would have thought it?
Yeah. Well, we've also got the Nixium arrest, and that's a big story with connections to the Bronfmans, and of course, Epstein's connections to Bill Clinton specifically. Hillary Clinton is said to have flown on that airplane to Lolita Island, Little St. James, reportedly 5 or 6 times, but the flight logs show that Bill was on that plane at least 20 times. He denies going, and it's all coming out, and it would not be coming out if Hillary Clinton was sitting in the Oval Office. Let me ask you this, before we lose you, your experience for 20 years at the Irish Independent, were you ever, and look, I think things are far worse now in the mainstream media than they were probably throughout your 20 years. Right now, the mainstream media is bought and paid for by 6 or 7 globalist companies, at least in this country. 90% of the mainstream garbage people consume are controlled by essentially corporate globalist entities. And it's my belief, and Q has said, if you follow Q at all, Q has said, watch the families, pay attention to the bloodlines, the families. And we see people like Anderson Cooper at CNN, and we all know his family ties. And frankly, his 6-month stint with the CIA, I believe, in college. Do you think that it's possible that many of these people in the mainstream, the biggest mainstream publications and media we see, have family ties to the deep state? I mean, is that what's going on here? Or is it just a matter of you put an editor or you put a CEO at the top of an organization who gives the marching orders of what can and can't be talked about? Or is it a little bit of both?
I don't think that would apply here in Ireland. It's just, unfortunately, with my generation, and a lot of my generation, their 30s, 40s, early 50s, were so beholden by debt and so, suffocated by big mortgages and that they just were not able, I feel sorry for them in a way, but they should get out of journalism because they're now just spin doctors. So I know, having worked under a man called Tony O'Reilly, he was actually the boss of Heinz. He would have been the wealthiest man in Ireland until Dennis O'Brien took his place. But he owned the Irish Independent, the biggest newspaper group. And I worked under him for most of my career, and I was never asked not to write about corruption, or I was never told to get away from certain stories. And a lot of people would have said that, he did interfere, but he didn't. And his bottom line was, he was a newspaper man, and his bottom line was profit. So as long as we were selling newspapers, which we were doing our job. When Dennis O'Brien, Clinton's biggest Irish donor, took over, newspaper circulations plummeted because people knew they were being told nonsense and government spin day in, day out. So he was never in it to successfully build and continue this newspaper empire that his predecessor had. He was just in it to spin the government line. So in Ireland, it's probably different. The elite in Ireland are very, very small, and it's very easy to control people. Very, very easy. And I probably am the only journalist at the moment who's speaking out against globalism. And, they call me every name under the sun. They hate my guts, but I'm fortunate because I'm not beholden financially to any bank due to the fact that I had to sue Dennis O'Brien. So I'm at liberty to speak out, and that just kills them. But it's disgusting what has happened to journalism in this country, in so many countries. It's absolutely, they have sold their souls. They're just spin doctors now. And, it's shameful because we have such a responsibility to let the public know, to hold power to account, to make sure that politicians resign when they've done the wrong thing or squandered taxes or abused rights. So that never happens in Ireland now.
Yeah, it's never been more clear that we're beating the mainstream media in the public square, which is why, and you alluded to it, that Google and YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and even Pinterest and others are trying to silence the truth in the alternative media because they can't win the conversation or the debate in the public square because they don't have a leg to stand on. You're right. I think many of these people and these social media companies have essentially sold their souls to globalism, and then you can be the judge of whoever the globalist God is, but it's not the God of the Bible. Hey, let me ask you this before we let you go, Gemma. since I won't do your name justice, not having the accent down, can you tell people about your websites and tell people how they can find you and support you? Because since you're not taking that salary from a mainstream media publication, and it is harder and harder to make your way as an independent journalist, especially now that YouTube is demonetizing everybody, how do we support you specifically?
Yeah, well, I'm not great at sort of pushing that really. I do have a PayPal account, but I need to sort of push it a bit more. I decided to set up an anti-corruption organization a few months ago, and that is called anti-corruptionireland.com. So there is a PayPal there if people want to, but through my journalism, I have to get a bit more active. But I'm on, as I say, I'm on YouTube, and I have a website, GemmaO'Doherty.com as well. Twitter, shadow ban everything I put up. So, you know, and I'm on Facebook too. But look, it's a constant struggle. And we have Google and Facebook and Twitter, they all have their European headquarters in Ireland, because Ireland is the softest touch in Europe. And they know they'd get away with murder. So that's why they've headquartered here. So I have been able to go into their headquarters when they have shut me down. I get regular death threats on Twitter, physical threats, violence, and I've had to go in there and demanded that this stop, but it doesn't stop because they're not accountable to anyone. So it's, you know, it's a double-edged sword, because we have to use them. That's where the war is being fought, Sean. But, you know, it'll be great when we have some proper free speech platforms, and the people who are allowing all of this mayhem and censoring us at every turn will someday be held to account. They will have to be.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'd say this too, guys. I'm on Gab now at the urging of my friend Neon Revolt. There's lots of upgrades being made over at Gab and big plans in the future. So you guys can follow me over at Gab. Gemma, maybe you can hop on to Gab, start an account. I know it gets hard. You know, I get emails all the time with people. Are you on Gab maybe?
I am, yeah, but it does.
Okay.
I do lives. I only do live streams, so they
Okay.
don't have that platform yet. So I have to really look at just doing pre-records.
Okay. Well, and YouTube is still the biggest public square for video in the world. That's certainly not going to change anytime soon. But anyway, we'll keep our eye on this. Gemma, this is just the first time you've been on. Hopefully I can have you back if you're willing, because I think you're fantastic. So my hat's off to you for what you're doing. You're very brave. You're very courageous, standing up to the tyranny in Ireland on behalf of all of us. I used to say this all the time. I need to start saying it again. And it's really a spin on where we go one, we go all. But we are all in this mess together. Globally, those of us that have woken up to this new world order, one world government tyranny, look, guys, that's why they're aligned against us, because their plan isn't going so well. When people wake up, look, I've said this before, Gemma, once the genie's out of the bottle, you can't put it back in. Like once you're awake, you can't go back to sleep, right?
No, you can't. You can't. And it becomes a mission. If you're not on a mission, when you know what you know, I don't know, go back to sleep. But for me, it is an absolute mission, and I'm going to devote the rest of my life to it without a doubt, because I feel we have a duty to do that to those that are coming up behind us. We've got to try and leave, you know, our countries in a fairly decent state. We're very privileged to live in the first world. But, you know, our countries were built by our parents and grandparents, and they wanted us to have the best possible opportunities and to be free. And that's the most important thing. But our freedoms are being taken from us every day. But I do see, thanks, as I say, to your great work, things are changing and we are winning. Definitely.
Well, that's the spirit. All right. Well, a shout out to you and, of course, my buddy Rowan Croft over there. I'm going to have him on again soon. And Gemma, we'll get you back on. Guys, I will leave the links to Gemma's websites in the more info section below this video. So check those out. And I very much appreciate your time, Gemma.
Thank you so much, Sean. Well done for all your brilliant work.
Oh, I'm blushing. Well, you're very kind, and I'm delighted to have spoken with you today. So thank you so much. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. For real news 24/7, you can visit us at sgtreport.com, the antidote to corporate propaganda. And of course, check us out at thelibertymill.com, which is essentially the Drudge Report of Truth. It's fantastic. I love that site. And last but not least, thephaser.com, where I hand select videos for you on a daily basis, which because of YouTube's changing algorithms, you may not otherwise be able to find. So again, guys, thanks for all your support. Thank you to my patrons. God bless the truth tellers all over the world. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
The deep state is panicked and they're desperate. And let me tell you who the deep state should fear the most. And that is other deep state players that are talking.